Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I want to give you all some Regency romance book recommendations. So if you're new to my channel, you may not know, I am a huge romance reader and in particular I'm a huge Regency romance fan. Just any historical romance in general I'm a huge fan of, and by historical romance I'm really talking about the historical romance tradition, and by that, it's very kind of tropey, I guess. A lot of historical romance, especially if it's Regency romance or, you know, slightly later in the Victorian era or something like that, it follows a particular formula, and I absolutely love any Regency, Victorian, historical romance because they deliver a happy ending. Usually there's certain kind of characteristics that the main characters will have, such as being a wallflower or being quite an independent, feisty woman who meets a man that kind of matches her in that. Basically, there is a lot of fun to be had with Regency romance, and I want to share with you some of my favourite books in the Regency romance genre that if you have never read this genre before, or perhaps you have but are looking for new recommendations, then this is the video for you. So before we do get cracking on the recommendations, please do make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Also, don't forget to click that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I do post a video, and I have some really good ones coming up. So I really hope you stick around on my channel and enjoy the videos I've got coming soon. So I know you are all here for the recommendations. So let's just get cracking, shall we? So first I want to preface this by saying a lot of these recommendations are authors that I have talked about before on my channel. That is because I would say there are authors in this genre who are basically the kind of like hallmarks of the genre. There are authors who are extremely popular but have written a lot of books, so you will hear the same names be kind of like bandied around, especially on BookTube, in Regency romance book recommendations, because they are the most famous authors in the genre for a reason, and there are some names that you probably will recognize in this video. So with that in mind, I want to kick off with Tessa Dare. So I am a huge Tessa Dare fan, and the book that I really want to recommend to you guys to kick you off on your Regency romance journey is The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. So this is book 1 in the Girl Meets Duke series. So I would say this is probably Tessa Dare's most famous series. It is also her most recent series. So this series is still ongoing, and the premise of this series, of the Girl Meets Duke series, is it features a group of 4 friends, and each book focuses on each of their love stories. So the first book kicks off with a woman who is basically down on her luck. She is a seamstress and she is really, you know, she is trying to make ends meet essentially. She ends up meeting this man who is very scarred from the wars, and he often doesn't like show his face. He's not a very public figure anymore because he believes he is disfigured and doesn't want to show his face in public essentially. So they basically enter a deal because he needs an heir to carry on his lineage, essentially, and he basically needs a wife to do that. So when he meets the main character and, you know, they meet for the first time, he basically says like, let's do a deal. I'll marry you, give you a son, and you'll be set for life in terms of money and security, but then I will also get my kind of heir. So they enter this deal. Already the tropes are incredible in this because it is a marriage of convenience situation. Tick. I love a marriage of convenience. And basically they have rules around their kind of situation. Whenever they do sleep together, they can't kiss each other. And obviously it's just business only. They want an heir, and that's all they kind of set out to do. Then of course they find themselves falling in love with each other, and it is the most beautiful, amazing romance story ever. This is also inspired by Beauty and the Beast, I believe, because it is very like, you know, the hero is the Beast character and he slowly kind of learns to love himself again, and it's just an incredible story, so I really would recommend The Duchess Deal. The other books in the series are The Wallflower Wager, which I remember being amazing. Oh, the second book was called The Governess Game, and I think The Governess Game was actually my favourite because it features another one of the friendship group, and she actually starts working as a governess who has 2 children, and it's just a lot of fun, let me just tell you that. What I really love about each of these women as well is that they each have like, I guess, a hobby that defines them. So for example, in the second book, the heroine really loves like astronomy and stuff like that. So she's very into science, into space, and I just think like that kind of added element makes her really ahead of her time. So I really would recommend Tessa Dare's very modern feeling Regency romances. Like, they are romantic, they of course have all the historical romance in there, but also the heroines are so modern, they are so brilliant, they are feminist, they are just absolutely brilliant. So please do read the Girl Meets Duke series if you haven't already. The next book I really want to recommend is The Earls Marriage Bargain by Louise Allen. So I actually read this one recently, and I would say this is kind of a underdog book here on BookTube. Like, I haven't really heard anyone recommend this book, and I want to start by saying you must read this book. This is kind of a forced marriage situation as well, in the sense of we meet our main character who really wants to be an artist. Like, she is quite out there in terms of her art for the time, because she likes to paint nude models, and at the time it's not very becoming of a lady to paint people in the nude, basically. So she is escaping from her situation because she is basically being forced to stay with her aunt, because she's left her home in disgrace for being found painting a nude model. And on the way to her kind of aunt's house where she's been exiled to, she ends up saving the life of this Earl, and she basically like really hits it off with him and ends up like really falling for him. And he also has his own situation going on where the love of his life is basically marrying someone else. So they each have things going on in their lives, but they have this situation where they end up staying the night together in an inn. Nothing really happens, like they don't sleep together or anything, but because of that one night where they are basically unchaperoned and alone, word gets out and essentially they are forced to marry. And this causes a lot of situations, because obviously our main character, our heroine, she wants to become an artist, but her new husband-to-be doesn't approve of that at all. He's very traditional, and he's like, you know, realistically, you can't really be an artist, like I don't want you to pursue your passion type of thing. But then on the flip side, our main character, our heroine, she is also like, I really like this guy, but he's in love with someone else. So there is lots of dynamics at play here. I would say this book has a lot of things going for it, and I think it's really rich in different kind of conflicts that it brings up. So I really would recommend The Earls Marriage Bargain if you want a Regency romance with a lot of issues, but also a lot of great spicy romance scenes. And I just think this one is brilliant and you all should read it. The next two books I want to talk about are by the same author, and that is my all-time favorite Regency romance author. You've guessed it, Lisa Kleypas, aka my queen, my everything. I love her. So the first book I really want to recommend is Secrets of a Summer Night, and this is book 1 in the Wallflowers series. So the Wallflowers series is a book series that takes each of a friendship group in turn, just like the Tessa Dare series really. You will see a common theme in Regency romance series like this, but Secrets of a Summer Night takes one of a series of friends who are all wallflowers, and that means they kind of stick to the side of the ballroom and they never get asked to dance. Like, they are kind of like rejects, I guess, of the ballroom. And Secrets of a Summer Night really introduces our main character to a kind of rake, I guess. Like, he's very notorious for, you know, sleeping around and like wooing women. And this is the start of an amazing series of the Wallflowers. I would actually say book 2, which is called Devil in Winter, I believe. That book is incredible because it introduces a character called Lord Sebastian, who is incredible. And Sebastian St. Vincent is like one of those characters that is iconic in the Lisa Kleypas world, essentially, because, as I will segue onto nicely, these characters in the Wallflower series also relate to the characters in a series called The Ravenels. And the first book in the Ravenels is called Cold-Hearted Rake, and basically features a widow who ends up marrying the person who inherits her late husband's estate. Very badly explained situation, but you just have to read it, guys. Now, what I love about Lisa Kleypas's books is how characters from different series will pop up in other series, and it is incredible when that happens, because you know, you really do appreciate how interwoven this world is. It feels really real. It feels like a family, and you just love these characters so much. So I would recommend reading the Wallflower series first to get an idea of who the main players are, the main families. Then read the Ravenels. You can also read a series called the Hathaways in between. There's also a series called the Hathaways, which I think is like in between those two series. I would also recommend that too. I will leave all the links to the first books in these series down in the description bar below. But please, please, please read Lisa Kleypas's historical novels. They are just all sorts of brilliant. Actually, I really think that Lisa Kleypas's novels get better and better. The Ravenel series as well obviously features a family called the Ravenels, and of course each book focuses on their love stories. And what's really special about the Ravenels is there are characters in this series, as well as like the Wallflower series, who are ahead of their time, like heroines who are feisty and brilliant and smart and intelligent. And you just want to root for them, and they are fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to move on slightly, and I'll stop fangirling about Lisa Kleypas now. I talk about Lisa Kleypas a lot. Please read her, guys. Please read her. Anyway, next up, we have Abigail Reynolds and her Pride and Prejudice variations. So this is a little bit different because I guess this is technically fan fiction, because Abigail Reynolds writes incredible spin-offs of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So they are actually like published in their own right. You can find all of them like on the Kindle store and everything. So the first variation in the series is called Impulse and Initiative. And what each of these variations do is kind of propose a different scenario to a lot of the famous scenes in Pride and Prejudice, but makes them into almost full-length novels. So a lot of these variations are sequels to Pride and Prejudice, so kind of looking at family life of the Darcys following Pride and Prejudice. But a lot of them are situations that introduce traditional tropes to Pride and Prejudice. So for example, what if Lizzie had said yes to Darcy's first proposal? What if she had to say yes in that situation? What would that look like? What would their story be then? It's no secret that I'm a huge Jane Austen fan, and I read these variations years ago because I needed more. I was actively looking for Pride and Prejudice fanfiction and stumbled across Abigail Reynolds' work. And actually, Pride and Prejudice variations are almost like a genre of Regency romance in their own right, because even though they're taking Jane Austen's beloved classic Pride and Prejudice, they are literally Regency romances that are so brilliant, and so many brilliant authors are writing Pride and Prejudice variations right now. So I will leave a link to Abigail Reynolds' novels down below. But if you're looking for something like Pride and Prejudice and you want more of that world, of that romance, of that story, I would recommend these to you. Like, no shame. If you like Regency romance, you are going to love these stories. The next book I really want to recommend is Slightly Married by Mary Ballow. So Mary Ballow writes the Bedouin Saga. I think this is book 1 in the Bedouin Saga, and little disclaimer here, I haven't read the rest of the series, but I really do intend to read the rest of the series because book 1, Slightly Married, was 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed that book. So the Bedouin Saga is about a family called the Bedouins, essentially. They are 6 brothers and sisters, and the series takes each of them in turn. So this book features Aidan Bedouin, who is the second son of the Bedouins, and he basically follows a request from one of his friends who is actually dying to look after his sister. So he goes to, you know, their house to look after the sister and ends up falling in love with her. And he also has to kind of save her because basically she can't stay on that estate. So basically the estate goes elsewhere. So she is effectively homeless. So he offers her a marriage of convenience type situation. They get married, and of course romance ensues, and it is perfect. I would recommend. So if you're looking for a Regency romance author who you maybe haven't read yet, I really do think Mary Ballow doesn't get as much like hype as Lisa Kleypas or Tessa Dare or Sarah MacLean. You know, she really is an author who I haven't heard a lot about. I just kind of stumbled across this book on Goodreads, so I really would recommend it. If you're looking, you know, if you've read all of the kind of usual players in the Regency romance genre and want someone new, then definitely try Mary Ballow. So I'd recommend Slightly Married and the Bedouin Saga, and I definitely need to read the rest of this one. And finally, the next book I really want to recommend is another start of a series that I haven't finished yet, but the first book was enough to make me realise that I need to finish this series ASAP. And this book is A Rogue by Any Other Name by Sarah MacLean. So this book is actually incredible and has made me a Sarah MacLean fangirl for life, essentially. I really need to read her other books. Sarah MacLean is really another big name in the genre, and she has several different series, I think. I think she has the Love by Numbers series and also the Rule of Scoundrels series. And A Rogue by Any Other Name is book 1 in the Rules of Scoundrels series. So this book, A Rogue by Any Other Name, is about childhood best friends. And basically, this couple were friends at childhood, but then the man in the situation has basically turned into a proper wrong'un. Like, he is a rogue, he is a rake, he is bad news. And then when this couple end up meeting later on in life, she is obviously very well respected. She, you know, is trying to preserve her virtue and everything, and he really threatens that. And he is quite a menacing figure in this novel. Like, he's quite roguish, as the title would suggest. If you're looking for a more like naughtier hero in a novel, someone who's like quite bad news and brings that whole element of seduction and everything like that, I would recommend this book. Also, it is perfectly spicy, it is brilliant. In fact, all these books are spicy, so I would recommend everything in this video if you're looking for a book with a bit of spice to it. But I absolutely loved this dynamic between the hero and heroine here. The fact that they were best friends, but life circumstances have basically led them both to lead very different lives, to the point where there's kind of a good and evil situation going on, and they end up falling in love with each other all over again. It is absolutely perfect, so I really would recommend. And a final kind of disclaimer, I haven't mentioned any Julia Quinn here, who is of course the author of the Bridgerton saga. The reason I haven't mentioned this in this book recommendations video is because I don't think I need to. Like, if you are new to the Regency romance genre, of course I would recommend reading Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series and watching the Netflix show. It is incredible. It probably hasn't escaped your notice yet. And if you are not new to the genre, you may have already read Bridgerton, so I don't really want to kind of rehash it again. Like, you know, I don't really feel like I need to recommend it because everyone's recommending it. Actually, as I'm filming this evening, I am going to the Bridgerton Secret Cinema Ball in London. So I'm about to get decked up in all my Regency regalia. I'm about to, you know, wear my dress and go and have a ball and pretend I'm in the Bridgerton Netflix show. And I couldn't be happier about that. So of course I had to recommend Bridgerton. Just go and read it, add it to your list, as well as all of these other books in this video today. And I think that's all we have time for today. I will be leaving all the books recommended in the description bar below, so please do check them out if you'd like to. Also, don't forget to check out my socials for more bookish content, like follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BookBellReads. I post a lot of books on there basically, and I would hate for you to miss all the content. So do give me a follow. Let's chat about books over on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye!